Text, textbooks, and teaching. The role of textbooks in education. The term textbook calls to mind our own personal learning experiences in Canadian classrooms. The term conjures up memories of rote learning, memorizing endless facts, or even of the tomes of encyclopedias that lived in our libraries or family rooms. However, before they found their way into present-day classrooms, their origin can be traced all the way back to even before the invention of Gutenberg's printing press, which made books available to the masses. By investigating the history of the textbook in education, one can gain a better understanding of the purpose of textbooks in schools and their role in the classroom today. If we are to investigate the origins of the textbook in education, we need to first travel back to the introduction of the Codex, or bound book. In fact, Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines the term textbook as a book used in the study of a subject or a literary work relevant to the study of a subject. Thus, the first textbook could be viewed as the Bible, which was first painstakingly produced by hand in the form of illuminated manuscripts by monks. Due to the manual production of the bound Bibles by a select number of individuals, books were still not available to the common people, and thus, reading and literacy were still considered to be an activity for the learned and privileged classes. Textbooks, as we know them today, though, were first developed out of a need to further literacy in children who had developed a simple understanding of written Latin, the alphabet, syllables, and words, but were not yet able to read longer passages. In fact, the first type of school books were probably filled with grammatical rules designed to encourage early literacy. The first school books, then, were prescriptive in nature and intended to aid instructors in teaching children to read. After all, literacy was an important skill needed to read the contents of the Bible. The invention of Gutenberg's printing press in Europe meant that books were able to be economically produced in larger amounts. The large amount of books available meant that there was a larger demand for formalized schooling. In turn, the demand for texts designed for schools rose accordingly. Although the demand for and availability of mass-produced, bound books developed in Europe, these sensibilities spread to European colonies and countries outside of Europe. As European colonies began to gain their independence, their textbooks reflected their newfound independence in locally produced texts that reflected their own values, sensibilities, and beliefs. Thus, the text was an extension of and a reflection of values and beliefs of a particular society. For example, when the United States gained independence, textbooks originally used in schools were replaced with locally produced texts that reflected the new, independent spirit and values of the newly formed nation. Before this, the colonies in America used the New England Primer, first produced in 1690. These primers were used to teach religious values. However, other textbooks were still brought over from England. Noah Webster's Reader, American Spelling Book, was used in the late 18th century when the Revolutionary War broke out and these imports were no longer available. After the creation of the new United States, Webster's dictionaries were used to reflect the new American language. In fact, Webster also went on to produce the early American history textbook, which also reflected a new nationalistic view of history. This textbook is often touted as the first American history textbook. Thus, texts and textbooks are one way that governments and popular society ensure that certain views are relayed to young children. Authors, editors, and publishers also have a key role in creating and propagating particular messages in society. In fact, the early textbooks in America reflect this purpose as they were used to develop a young nation's identity and entrenching this new history in its younger generation. Using readers or textbooks to further a particular view is also illustrated in the case of the McGuffey readers introduced in the United States in 1836. These readers were meant to develop literacy skills in 6th graders. The readers were produced by William and Alexander McGuffey and reflected their Protestant beliefs, as their moral code was entrenched in the language and teachings of the texts. The McGuffey textbooks became established within U.S. classrooms and sold more than 47 million copies between 1836 and 1870. In this case, the popularity of these textbooks in American schools affected the morals and values of an entire generation of students. Once accepted, the McGuffey readers became the foundation for a common curriculum within American schools. Much the same way, when Canada became a nation in 1867, Canadians felt a similar need to address the issue of a common, local identity that reflected a local struggle rather than a British history. As Joseph Farrell notes, when Canada became independent, the country changed its textbooks to reflect the Canadian view that the War of 1812 was won neither by the United Kingdom nor the United States, but by Canada, since that nation had successfully resisted invasion and attempts at annexation by its neighbor to the south. The history textbook, then, is an example of how bias is entrenched in the texts used in schools. These books are often viewed as truth and factual. Indeed, the information is often factual, but is written with a certain viewpoint in mind. Likewise, the information that is edited from the content and omissions also speak to the bias that exists. As Walter Ong wrote, print creates a sense of closure. This sense of closure or finality is present in textbooks, as we often view the facts as the definitive view. Classroom teachers may use the text as a way to teach students the facts surrounding a certain topic. However, the bias of the textbook and its often singular viewpoint is never fully addressed. Ong points to the textbooks created by Peter Ramus as another example of how print creates a self-contained environment about a particular topic. Ramus produced textbooks about the arts that were seen as prescriptive and defined formulas and methods to achieve a certain result. These fixed viewpoints did not consider other methods or means to achieve the same result. In much the same way, textbooks within educational settings have done the same to students and learning. As Robert Lindley so aptly puts it in his online article, Textbooks and History Standards, an Historical Overview, history defines a nation and its vision for the future. Thus, governments, cultural and religious groups, and citizens have a vested interest in what textbooks say about a nation's history. In intensely Christian areas, the role of creationism versus evolution in science textbooks continues to be a subject that engenders debate. Issues of how to represent a country's role in past conflicts is also a serious subject for debate. Countries such as Germany and Japan often struggle with how to depict its role in World War II in its history textbooks. Therefore, the information our children first learn about a particular topic is often through textbooks in the classroom. How teachers use these textbooks determine what our children believe and feel about a certain topic. In the classroom, textbooks have an important role in shaping a student's understanding of the past and the world they live in today. In fact, research has indicated that although there is a plethora of available information and learning materials available, teachers continue to turn to textbooks as the core teaching resource in their classrooms. Textbooks, then, are often the first resources students access in schools in order to learn about a certain topic. Their role in teaching and learning significantly affect how our students approach and think about a particular subject. Even in today's technologically robust landscape, textbooks continue to play an important role within the classroom. Although textbooks have been in existence for hundreds of years, they continue to invite discourse surrounding their production and content. Textbooks in education today continue to hold a certain authority. Perhaps it is the very format of the printed text that helps further this myth. Although textbooks are now often available in digital form and the same information may be available online, many continue to view textbooks as the authority on topics or completely factual in nature. Maybe it is the inherent unspoken view that textbooks are laboriously researched and edited by a team of individuals. Or maybe it is because we associate with text and print materials qualities of stability and authority. These long-held views about print and text may be seeing an age of transition as the new generation of digital natives, or people who have grown up with and around technology, begin to wrangle with the hierarchy of print, text, and digital information. By delving into the history of the textbook, the available information underlines the fact that textbooks continue to be used to further a certain point of view, storyline, or history. The nature of how information is shared is beginning to change with new technologies. This does not necessarily render textbooks obsolete as the sole source of student learning. It simply changes how we use them and their role in furthering student learning. In other words, textbooks should be used simply as a starting point for conversations and investigations into a topic. John Wakefield contends that teachers should use textbooks as a tool of instruction rather than an object of instruction. This tool is not the object that teaches the child, but only one avenue through which a child gains knowledge and understanding.